Welcome.
Hi, good afternoon. So I've had the opportunity to hear the very informative debate, discussion, and I've learned a lot from all of you by sitting here today, so I will be succinct and rephrase the reason for my appearing before you, which is to talk about the federally unfunded mandate on child care providers from the lens of the provider. I can't emphasize enough what a mistake this is. As someone who's been on the end of trauma teams as a registered nurse, intervention in homeless shelters, and worked for many, many years through different aspects in society, let me be clear. There is no way for us to succeed in New York if we don't start with leveling the playing field for the multicultural children and poor people who need this service. I heard the discussion this morning and many of your questions with OCFS. Bottom line, of course, the providers who illegally exempt will go underground. How can they survive? They cannot compete and survive, and quite frankly, as some of your questions have indicated, of course they're attracted to the $15 minimum wage in other areas. Child care, if we really value it, we have to understand it's more than just watching a child or the so-called babysitting. It is indeed meeting the society and the community's needs in a culturally sensitive, proficient manner, getting that child the chance to compete in life, to understand what it is to sit in a classroom, eat a hot meal, be with other children. When we don't do that correctly, we pay for that later if we don't pay for it up front. And when we talk about costing items, let's go to the emergency room. Let's look at the children and the prices we pay for the recovery of a lost opportunity. Those opportunities are lost when we don't recognize it's not fair to consider legally exempt and the number of vouchers we need for children. Serving 21 or 25%, depending on who does the math, of those eligible is ridiculous. How do we consider ourselves prudent by investing in the economics of our state when we disadvantage the very people who are trying to succeed, who we claim we are trying to move forward? How can that possibly happen? I have seen in my time many different mandates that are unfunded and are untimely. This cannot work. There is not the ability because we do not know the rules. The inspectors do not know the rules. We do not have a timeline, and so many speakers before me were very clear in articulating. Are we kidding? We're going to put background checks and fingerprinting additional costs on the back of very poor people? These are not enforceable mandates and legally exempt. You're walking in someone's home. How do you walk in someone's home and enforce all of these things? Do we just want to feel good by saying these are the great rules New York has? Or do we want to do it right the first time? And doing it right the first time starts by understanding we need a timeline, we need a rollout, we need an action plan, and we need to give support to those people there. And we need to remember, there is no time to do it over. How many times do we sit and contemplate the do-over? The do-over because we did not correctly implement the first time. In effect, there's a lot of planned remarks and a lot of learned people in the room, but that's the points I feel I wanted to emphasize. I do want to also say about special needs children, and again, culturally proficient, this is a very serious skill mix that we need to be sensitive to the public health needs of our children and the ability to react to children who need additional guidance, support. And that will not happen if we do not greet poor children in the same way we greet children who have the opportunity to be in our healthcare system. All of that said, we hope that you will review, and I'm sure from your comments today and your concerns and your interest, you already know these things, but we want to emphasize to you, those are I think the summary that I wish to articulate based on a long day of hearing very interesting remarks. So thank you.
Senator Diane Savino.
Thank you, Senator Kruger. Hi, Ann, how are you?
Good.
I'm just curious, when we did the legislation a few years ago to allow for collective bargaining rights for daycare workers, the family-based daycare workers, The UFT has the workers in the city, and CSEA has them everywhere else. One of the reasons why we wanted them to have collective bargaining rights is so they could band together for the purposes of making the argument that we needed to raise the subsidies, which basically is how they earn their living. Has there been any success with that effort to, bring awareness to how low the subsidies are so we could elevate them?
No. And with the market rate being rolled back in effect, that wasn't helpful either. There's been a series of discussions, and it isn't even a fair formula. If we were bargaining wage and we talked about the providers, it's under the $11 that you remarked about before because they're doing a 12, 13-hour day. So no, we have not succeeded in that area. We talk about a lot of things, but there's no progress that I am aware of.
And I know that other people have raised the concern that if we raise the minimum wage, over this period of time to $15 an hour, child care workers are entitled to that too, and there's a concern that that'll somehow elevate the cost of child care to working parents. Although most of your members, their child care, their actual salary comes through the subsidies that the parent receives, correct?
Yes.
Right. So how would raising the state's minimum wage affect them?
It would be a welcome opportunity for the families they're serving and for them to be able to participate in a more viable career. This is actually, it can become a career where we have talked about PD. I heard other speakers talk about it. The UFT administers those programs, and I think what it does is offer the opportunity, the launch pad, if you will, for someone to nurture and develop into a worker with some respect and some dignity in a lot of areas where it's just considered women's work, and we're still doing that based on the way this particular budget has reacted to child care.
And you have 15,000 members in the city of New York. Do you know how many children are being served by the home-based child care system?
Oh my goodness, about 200,000.
200,000.
Yes.
Because earlier today,
that's through that system, but remember now
Right.
that's vouchered, and there are so many others. But in terms of framing the question in that way, that's about the
So
number.
through that voucher system, that's 200,000.
Yes.
Because earlier today we were told there's 207,000 children statewide that are given eligible for subsidy, but not that subsidy.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
No.
Thank you. Our next speaker is McLean Bearhoff, Supportive Housing Network of New York. And then for people who are watching, next up will be Carmelita Cruz from Housing Works. Hi.
Thank you. Thank you all for the opportunity to testify this afternoon. My name is McLean Bearhoff. I'm the State Advocacy Director of the Supportive Housing Network of New York. The network is a member association representing over 200 nonprofit providers and developers who operate more than 50,000 supportive housing units across the state. Supportive housing is permanent, affordable housing linked to on-site services for individuals and families that are homeless, disabled, and at risk. It is the proven, cost-effective, and humane way to provide stable homes to individuals and families who have difficulty maintaining housing due to disabling conditions. Supportive housing allows disabled individuals who have spent years living on the streets or in institutions to live fulfilling, rewarding lives integrated into the community. It gives them the stability, support, and sense of community they need to reunite with their families, become healthier, and in many cases, secure employment. It changes and saves lives every day. That is why the network strongly supports the executive's budget's proposal for 20,000 new units of supportive housing statewide over the next 15 years. The 5-year program is set to invest $2.6 billion for 6,000 new units of supportive housing over the first 5 years of this 15-year commitment. The governor has said that over the 15 years, the plan will result in 20,000 new supportive housing units. We commend the governor for this commitment and urge the legislature to stand with him and continue to support the need for the state to fund the 20,000 units over 15 years, specifically to build the first 6,000 units over the first 5 years. This plan is exactly what the legislature and the Campaign for New York envisioned when we stood together asking the state to support 35,000 units across the state. And while we're overjoyed with this long-term commitment to build 20,000 new units, we must not forego a commitment to fund the state's existing units that are housing formerly homeless persons today. Otherwise, we're not expanding the pipeline to address the crisis, rather replacing old units with new units. Adequate funding for units that are open now is just as critically important to funding the new units. OTDA supports the New York State Supportive Housing Program, which is one of the state's most important funding sources for innovative and effective solutions to keeping people from becoming or remaining homeless. It is the primary funding stream for the ongoing operation of supportive housing in New York State. It pays for critical on-site services that make it possible to house multi-disabled and vulnerable individuals, families, and children in supportive housing. Services include case management, counseling and crisis intervention, employment and vocational assistance, parenting skills development, and building security services. This year, the executive budget flat funds this program at $29.1 million. This is about $4.8 million short of what is needed to adequately fund all existing supportive housing residences and all new residences opening up in 2016. This funding shortfall jeopardizes the housing stability of over 6,300 homeless individuals, families, and children across the state. Without this additional $4.8 million, just under 100 supportive housing residences are either not receiving this critical service funding or are underfunded by 10%. About roughly half have been cut 10%, and the other half have not received any of this service funding. I did leave a few examples in the testimony of how these cuts will impact existing residences and future residences about to open. And I would just conclude with asking the legislature to consider that at this time when we're facing record homelessness, we must stand together to ensure that the programs currently serving this population, the most vulnerable, maintain minimal but critical support services to keep high-risk tenants safely housed. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to start. So in earlier today's testimony, we learned that $75 million of JP Morgan settlement money that was supposed to be in the 14-15 budget, the 15-16 budget, has never been released, and that was for supportive housing. What did you think you were getting that money for, and what's happened since you didn't get that money?
Sure. It was our understanding last year that money was kind of the down payment for 5,000 units of supportive housing that the governor had announced a year ago. It's our understanding now that that funding has been kind of lumped into this new 5-year commitment of 6,000 units. So it wasn't spent. There weren't RFPs that went out. I think it's been wrapped up now into this new commitment. So essentially last year's commitment is part of this year's commitment, if that makes sense.
So last year's commitment was 5,000 units over 5 years, and that became 6,000 units over 5 years, but we lost a year.
Right, but the difference is that last year there was a plan for the city and the state to share in that commitment, and now it's our understanding that the state is fully funding those 6,000 units, 100% with all state funding, no local match. So that would be the difference.
And also from earlier testimony of the money for supportive housing, it was broken down X amount for capital and Y amount for services. So you're showing today that you've actually been flat funded or actually are short almost $5 million for ongoing supportive services.
Right, this specific program, the New York State Supportive Housing Program, correct.
Right, but the governor's people said they actually have lots of new money for the services to go along with supportive housing. So is there somewhere else in the budget where we can find that money that will address both your shortfall and your expanding needs?
Sure, it's our understanding that the commitment for the 6,000 units was, I believe, $2.6 billion, of which $200 million was for the support services. That RFP has not gone out yet, so we're not sure how they will be rolling out the services funding for that. I would anticipate maybe it would be through the NYSHIP program, maybe it would be a brand new program. We just don't know the details of that.
And is your understanding that that $200 million includes money for existing supportive housing or just new units?
For new units.
So no matter what they roll out, that wouldn't apply to the shortfall you're
correct.
suffering from now.
Correct. That's
And
right.
that hypothetically wouldn't be available until X number of years into the future when new supportive housing units came online.
Correct. Those, the 6,000 units are all for new construction, which will take a couple years to be built, so that you're correct.
And again, as you described, we're actually a year behind when the first commitment was made a year ago for 5,000
Right.
units. So we have actually, we've taken a step backwards when we were supposed to be taking big steps forward.
Sure. I mean, at the network, we're very excited to hear this 15-year commitment. We're even more excited to see that the 6,000 units is fully funded in the budget, but we would like to see some type of way that the 15,000 commitment be memorialized and realized over the next, the 20,000 units over the next 15 years.
Thank you. Assembly? Assemblymember Hepsey. Oh,
Thank
sorry,
you.
Denny.
Thank you. First, just got to get the pleasantries out of the way. McLean, thank you, and Laura Michoud, and everybody at the network for being incredible over the last year. If it was not for your work, the members of the legislature wouldn't have an understanding of what supportive housing is, what you do, how it is the answer to our current homeless crisis, and every step of the way, which has been a long, difficult process to get to the 35,000 units. You guys have been great, so I just want to say thank you.
Thank you so much.
We agree with you, or I agree with you, specifically about the need for a New York 4 agreement with respect to both Mayor de Blasio and Governor Cuomo, who've done an outstanding job on this issue. They will no longer be in office when these units come online, and so we agree with you with the need to lock down that deal. Also, it allows people in your network to plan and to go after other money to make sure that these units come to fruition. And I can tell you from the Assembly point of view that we are really going to be focused on the $4.8 million shortfall for existing units, and I believe, based on conversations publicly and also privately with the Commissioner, that they acknowledge that need. So we're ready to stand with you, and again, you guys have been great and need to take a bow for the incredible work you've done to get us to 35,000 units. We have some concerns about how they're coming out, but that's a good problem to have.
Absolutely.
So thank you, McLean, for all your work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Belmont Montgomery.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Hello. Thank you for your testimony. You named in you listed several examples, one from Rochester, one from Montrose, New York, one from Finger Lakes. And, you know, for me and for us in the city in particular, it is very difficult to cite special needs supportive housing, and impossible to do it without the supportive part. So, and you mentioned that there are cuts. Can I find out, because I have a number of supportive housing projects in my district. They are all extremely important, very well run. So far, no problems, but it's because they have the supportive housing arm there. Can you give me a list of the housing developments that I represent or that are in Brooklyn and that will be losing funds based on this?
Sure,
and
absolutely.
So that we can all work together. I'm sorry, I'm not that I don't support these,
Yeah.
but you understand.
Absolutely,
this
yes.
business, yeah.
I'm happy to talk with you after, and we're happy to get you that information relative specifically to your district, of course.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Okay.
Assembly?
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony and all your work through the Supportive Housing Network.
Great, thank you so much, appreciate it.
Thank you. Our next testifier will be Carmelita Cruz, Director, New York State Advocacy for Housing Works. And for those of you keeping track, we've had a number of cancellations. So next up in preparation, Jeffrey Lozman, New York State Society of Orthopedic Surgeons, along with Babette Gray, followed by UJA Federation, for just preparing yourselves for moving down, because there have been quite a few cancellations. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So thank you so much for sticking around, and I promise to be as short as I possibly can. My name is Carmelita Cruz. I'm the Director for New York State Advocacy at HousingWorks. HousingWorks is a healing community of people living with and affected by HIV and AIDS. Our mission is to end the dual crises of homelessness and AIDS through relentless advocacy, the provision of life-saving services, and entrepreneurial businesses that sustain our efforts. So over the past few years, HousingWorks has worked tirelessly to support the New York State plan to end the HIV and AIDS epidemic here in our state. On June 29th, the governor announced a very ambitious plan for New York State to end our AIDS epidemic by the year 2020. We were the first jurisdiction in the world to set this goal, so it's really historic. And the plan basically focuses on 3 pillars that the governor announced. One is identifying people who are HIV positive and getting them into care. The other is identifying folks that know they're HIV positive and have fallen out of care and really bringing them back into care. And then also facilitating access to PrEP and PEP. Our goal and how we determine if we are able to succeed and end the AIDS epidemic by 2020 is to reduce the number of new infections that we have here in the state each year. So last year we had around 3,000 new HIV infections. We're trying to get that to below 750 by 2020. That's the CDC's definition of ending our epidemic here in the state. As you probably know, there's no cure for HIV and AIDS, but with effective antiretroviral treatment that suppresses the virus level in someone's blood, we can really maintain the health of the person and make it virtually impossible to transmit HIV to others. So what I wanted to focus on today were 2 specific housing items that were not included in the budget. And that is expanding HACA services. So the HIV and AIDS Administration in New York City provides a series of benefits for people living with AIDS. That's enhanced rental assistance, nutrition and transportation assistance. So expanding those services to anyone in New York City who is HIV positive. Right now, those services are only available if someone has an advanced HIV diagnosis. So we're really waiting for people to get sick before we're willing to help them. And we'd really like to see that expanded to anyone who's HIV positive. So Mayor de Blasio included $26 million in his preliminary budget to expand HACA services to anyone who's HIV positive, and that's really contingent upon the state putting up their share, which is about another $30 million. So I really want to urge you to include that in your budget. It would be really a missed opportunity. We've been fighting to see the city even be willing to include this money for a number of years. So I am hoping that the state can put that money forward, and that will ensure social services to an estimated 7,300 HIV-positive New York City residents that are currently ineligible for HACA services because they aren't sick enough to access those services. The other thing that I wanted to bring up was that there is no HACA-like benefit for people that are HIV positive living outside of New York City. Right now, each county has the opportunity to participate in that program, but because the county match for funding the program is so expensive, many counties just don't have the funds to do that. We would really love to see money included in the budget to fund 100% of the expansion of HACA services to people living with HIV outside of New York City. There is a lot of information included in here, including research and some return on investments, but the return on investment is really, potentially billions of dollars if we are able to meet our goal of reducing the number of new infections to 750 by the year 2020, and in the years after that. It costs so much to house and care for and provide medical care for people with HIV that we can realize billions of dollars in Medicaid savings, potentially. So I wanted to highlight those things, and with my last 45 seconds, I just wanted to bring up 2 areas where we've been really, really successful in the state with reducing infections by really investing in effective interventions, and that's with injection drug users. At one point, about 7,500 new infections per year were attributable to injection drug use. In the last reported year, which is either 2013 or 2014, we only had 69 new infections that were attributable to injection drug use, and that's really because of the success of our harm reduction programs. and then also mother-to-child transmission. A number of years ago, mother-to-child transmission was around 500 per year for newborns, and within the past year, we've not had a single child that was born HIV positive, just because we've changed the law and started testing pregnant women for HIV and getting them on ARVs. So I just wanted to point out the success that we can really see when we invest in preventing new infections in the state.
Any questions?
Any questions?
Diane Savino.
I just have one question. I should know this, and I don't remember, but do the other counties around the state have a HACA equivalent?
No.
They don't. So New York City is the only social service district that has an agency directly
That pertains just to
HIV and AIDS.
Yes.
That's interesting. So if you live outside the city of New York and you are HIV positive, or you're HIV positive and you're symptomatic, where do they go for assistance?
You go to the regular social service agency, and you're provided with the same assistance that anyone else would.
So there's no additional assistance provided to them. In the almost 30 years since New York City created what was then the Division of AIDS Services?
Yes. Yes.
That is amazing.
And I mean, it's important to point out that 80% of the epidemic resides, 80% of the people with HIV reside in New York City, but that's still 20 to 30,000 people living outside of the city with HIV or AIDS that, yes, don't have these enhanced benefits.
Right. Actually, I do have a second question. It's about the 30% rent cap. As you know, the governor instituted it, I think, 2 years ago. Has it been successful in the city of New York? Are we seeing, the...
Yes, so far we've seen it be successful. There are a couple of issues that have come up, but the city administration has been very open and willing to kind of overcome those obstacles when they've been identified.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Appreciate your testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the next testifier is, I guess it's a twofer. Jeffrey Lozman and Babette Gray of the New York State Society of Orthopedic Surgeons.